Hello and welcome everybody! Welcome back to my channel, to my second video, which is a sketchbook tour. I've been filming this during the last couple of months, but like many of you out there, I always have approximately 100 sketchbooks going at the same time. So today I'm going to show you this A4 Royal Talens Art Creation Sketchbook, which is my favorite. It has 80 pages, which is a lot, and it's very affordable. This allows me to be completely free and experiment. I have a couple of expensive sketchbooks as well, but to be honest, I hardly use them because I feel too precious about them. If you want to get this Royal Talens sketchbook, just make sure to get the one with the off-white paper. They also offer some with completely white paper, but that one really behaves very differently and I do not recommend it, especially for wet media. Anyway, I have some nice stickers on the cover. This one up here is Kazland, whose art I love, even if it's not the same style as mine. I have two of his books and I can really recommend them. This sticker, unfortunately, I don't know anymore. I got it at an illustration market, but I forgot from whom. If you recognize it, let me know in the comments. And then here we have a sticker by Eline van der Gucht, or at Studio Medi. I also have a cool zine from this person with pigeons. And this is actually a sticker from Made by Harriet, whom I talked about in my last video. And this was on the packaging when I bought her calendar and some other things. So let's get started. Well, here on the first page, as you can see, I just swatched all my Kuretake Gansai Tambi paints. I got these a while ago. I'll quickly show you. It's this set right here. I still have to figure out if I really like them or not. I do find them very user-friendly, but I don't like the tactile feel of them, because they're quite tacky. I've used them a bit, but not that much. Anyway, so I was just swatching those paints, also adding the numbers and the names. Here on the next page, I did sort of a gallery wall. I like to do that sometimes when I don't quite know what to paint or I want to try a new color combination. You can see some of them are almost nothing in a way, just some blobs of color and some shapes. Really, I only have 1, 2, 3, 4 real sketches on this page, some flowers. But I did that when I bought a couple new markers and I wanted to do a fun swatching page. I'm just going to show you the markers quickly. I only bought 5 colors. These are Faber Castell Pitt Artist pen brushes. They are professional grade markers I wanted to try. The tip looks like this. And so anyway, I was just using those colors, which you can see down here. I swatched them down there. And so I just decided to make it a quick swatching page, but in a bit more fun way. Here on the next page, well, I just drew some tulips that we had. And this is a gouache or acrylic gouache maybe. And I just really like this color combo. And I think that's what inspired that. You know, especially this color right here. I think it's a light ultramarine. I really like this palette. Here, well, this is from Pencils for Tea, which is a live drawing session once a week. You basically have to draw someone's portrait for the duration of a song, so you only have 2 to 5 minutes. I went with wet paint, and you can imagine it's just too quick for that, and you can't really work with wet and wet techniques. So they look a bit crazy, but what can you do? Right here, I was actually thinking about stamp ideas. You know, first I wrote down some ideas, because the thing is, I bought a couple small round lino blocks. And I was just trying to figure out what I could do with that for stamps. But I actually haven't made them yet. And I think some of these ideas are really cute. Like especially this one, this one, this one. And maybe one of those peace signs, that's also quite cute. Alright, then this is from an Odd Orange session. If you don't know Odd Orange, it's a small company that was started a few years ago by this young woman who basically makes sketchbooks. And if you subscribe to her newsletter, then once a month there is one free painting session that you can join. And there's also one more that you can pay for, which is also very affordable. I think it's £3. So this was an Odd Orange session about painting famous painters. I went big and I actually quite like the effect of this, all of this white on the page. This is another painter from the same session. She had a cute little kitty on her shoulder and I just used my pan pastel and a pencil. I'll show you. It's this pan pastel. The color is burnt sienna and I quite like that to make shadows for skin tones. Here we have Henri Matisse. I also quite like this. It was very quick but cool. And so he's pictured sketching this bird that he's holding in his hand. And again, I used a very limited color palette, this time using the pan pastel for the background. Here on the next page we have yet another painter. In this case it's Joachim Zorolla, who I didn't actually know. So this is another quick sketch. In this case I only used pencil. Then we have this Salvador Dali sketch. Normally there was still his wife standing here somewhere behind it, naked I think, but I decided not to include that part. Again I only used pencil. And then we're already in another Odd Orange session, as you can see here. This was at the end of last year, so it was a winter wonderland session. I'm not so sure about all of this here at the top of the page, but I actually really like this bear. And I think the reason is this color combination of this ultramarine with this brighter blue. Yeah, I just really like those colors together. This one is basically a snow fight and we're looking at it from above. And then some of the other references I did in these smaller panels. So this is all still from the same session. As you can see, I used quite a limited color palette. I used this blue right here. It's also a pan pastel. I'll show you, it's this one right here. The hue is Phtalo Blue Tint. I actually also used this over here and also over here for the snow, which I think works quite well. And then other than that, I used this sort of terracotta color and some black and gray. These were two more sketches also from the same session, two skiers with the lines they make in the snow and a deer. Here I just did a quick painting of some flowers. I tried out a new color technique with a little brush, but I don't really like how this turned out. It's just much too bright for me and too colorful for my personal taste. I do like the use of the red pencil though. And I think this I will do it again. Alright, well here this is Sam Smith from a Tiny Desk concert. I don't know if you know these Tiny Desk concerts. It's a sort of series on YouTube where you can see artists perform in an intimate setting. It's really cool. This doesn't in any way mean that I love Sam Smith or his music. It's just me doing some sketching while watching videos. Sometimes I just like to sketch what I see. Right after that, I also watched the Billie Eilish Tiny Desk concert, and so well, I also drew her. I'm not sure if I really captured her likeness, but I still had fun. And it's not the worst portrait. I kind of like the eyes. I feel like I captured some feeling in the eyes. Now this is a sky I did with Neopastels. And well, this pink actually got in by accident. I still had some pink on one of the Neopastels, and so it just got in the mix. And so this is a study of Constable, who's a famous painter. And as you can see, I got the inspiration from Viola Art Studio. She's an artist and I really love her energy and her personality. She makes videos which always really inspire me to paint. You'll see lots more pages based off of her videos. I think in those days I was just watching a lot of her videos and I just had so much fun embracing her playful and experimental approach. And so here we also see that I did some swatches on the top left. So these are really quick mixed media pomegranate sketches. I really love doing these exercises. I just had so much fun with it. She really forces you to go really quick without thinking and just picking up colors, mixing media, and to just go for it. And I quite like the results. I definitely recommend her videos if you need some inspiration, some warm-up exercises, or if you're trying to overcome an art block. This is another one of her exercises, again all pomegranates. You can see the mixed media. There's some ink, some watercolor, the turquoise is a Neocolor too, and I even did a few splashes inspired by her to give the whole page even more energy. This next one is a huge mess. I really don't like it, but what can you do? I just went for it, and if you don't try things and experiment, you won't learn anything. And again, still with Viola Art Studio here, I sort of followed a reference of hers and also how she was doing it. And I actually really like how this turned out. Maybe for some of you this pink is too bright or these contrasts here too extreme, but personally I really like this now. So don't forget that this is pretty much copied from her, so all credit goes to her for this painting. But yeah, I was just feeling really inspired by her those days. Here I drew some tulips that we had. I don't like this painting, I think it's overworked and too tight. Let's just move on to the next. Here we have a little sketch. It's supposed to be Nala, who you might remember from my last video. That's my little dog. Not a great sketch, but that's exactly why I challenged myself to draw 100 dogs to improve my dog art. Go check out that video if you haven't seen it yet. This next one you might have already seen if you follow me on Instagram. I just had the most gorgeous tomatoes. Here in Belgium you can get quite a variety of tomatoes and I love these. They're called cœur de bœuf, which literally translates as beef heart. And they are huge. I suppose that's why they have this name. They're also very delicious. One of these is probably about this big. And so I just had them right there in front of me and I just went for it with lots of color and mixing media. And then I did the same with apples. We had a 6-pack of beautiful apples and I just sort of arranged them in front of me and did a quick mixed media sketch. Here we are in a free online drawing session run by drawingisfree.org. This is actually a portrait of the woman who organizes these sessions, Chloe. I think she's been doing it for 10 years, twice a week, every Monday morning and evening, all for free. What a commitment. Also here you get the duration of a song to draw each person, so you have to work incredibly quick. Chloe is always the first person to pose, which leads to her having a lot of really crazy drawings of her, because of course on the first one you're still warming up. That's another portrait. I used Neocolor IIs here. The dark blue is Neocolor II, and I really love the effect of the hair when you put the pastel on its side. Sometimes it's just so good. And since the Neocolor II is water soluble, I thought, what if I use a white Posca, which I did down here. She had this sort of pattern in her sweater, and I really liked the effect of how the Posca marker activated the Neocolor II. I actually really like this portrait. I think it's quite sketchy and fun. Here it continues, and again I'm using those Neocolor IIs and some markers over it, which dissolve the Neocolor and activates it. Here I just used a black Tombow. And I always try to write down the username of the person. You know, the whole thing takes place on Zoom, so you only see their usernames. This next one I actually quite like. You see, it's very minimal. And here was this arm, and the hand was really foreshortened and so really big. I quite like that I left everything over here really white. Sometimes less is more, and the white space, it can do a lot for your sketch. Okay, here we have one more with a mother and a daughter, which is always extra tough when you have two people posing, because you only have about 3 minutes to draw them. And I think the girl, unfortunately, she looks way too grown up. She doesn't really look like a girl. So the next one, this whole sketch, I just did it with a Tombow marker. And I actually quite like this. It's very sketchy. And I love to embrace those big shadows. Then we have another one. This one I did with a Posca pen. I really love that color of the Posca pen. And I actually think this portrait turned out not too bad. Here's yet another one. I'm not sure what I actually used. I think it's probably a brush with ink or watercolor. This one is definitely a Tombow marker again. There was a lot of bright light coming from the right side, and so sometimes the best way to capture that, I think, is to just not draw the lines or the parts that are in the bright light. And then you will see this effect of the light and the shadow side on the sketch too. Here's another one, also with hard shadows. And here's a few more, probably from the evening session. Sometimes what I do is that I put them all over each other. You can see here in yellow Chloe, and we see her here in the background. That was the first one I did. And then I just layer them on top of each other. But usually in the end, I don't really enjoy how the page looks. And I also learned that if I use a Stabilo marker with a hard tip, they just always produce a line of the same size. And I don't really like the effect. You know, we can see down here in the orange one, this is done with the Tombow, with the softer brush tip. And you can see that some lines are thin and some lines are thick. So the thickness of the line varies, and I think it makes a huge difference for the sketch. Well, here we just have some random swatches. I have no clue what I was doing here. So let's move on. Alright, here I actually did a portrait course, a short online portrait course by a German artist called Annie von Bergen. So first we did some exercises that dealt with line work. So here we just have a few blind drawing portraits that only take a few seconds. Now, I love blind drawing. It's one of my favorite things to do. I just love these effects, how the portraits turn out. You know, I could never make a portrait like that if I was looking at the page. But I just think they can turn out so fun and expressive. So while step 1 was about line work, step 2 was about shadows and shapes. And so here we started out at first by only putting down some very weak shadows. You know, here in the face, the lips, the hair, all of this. So you start gently with the very soft areas, and then you keep layering and building the portrait up from there. And finally, we did the combination of the line and the shadow shapes. This page was about trying out and planning different color palettes. And then this was the final portrait. So what you see is that at first I picked the color palette, keeping it limited to yellows, pinks and blues. And then you go ahead and group them and structure them by value. For the portrait, I started with the lighter values and worked my way down the palette. And I actually quite like this final result. It's obviously not a realistic portrait, but I still like the style. And then here we are on my favorite spread in the sketchbook. This is a portrait of my boyfriend and my dog. I think they both just look really cute here, as evidenced in the title that I gave this sketch. Another thing I also really like about it is that it really captures a moment from our lives, a very typical everyday moment with the typical objects in our life. I know that one day I'll look back at this and I'll remember what life was like during this time, with my boyfriend sitting on this chair with his blanket, the coffee cup and the e-reader. Sketching, for me, it's all about capturing those everyday moments. And then over here we just have a flower. It was slowly drying out and it had these really cool colors the way it was drying that I wanted to capture. But I don't really like how this turned out. This is from a movie, well actually an ad for this movie, The Room Next Door. Sometimes I just want to sketch something but I don't know what and I need some inspiration. So I'll just grab a magazine and I find an image that I like. I just wanted to make a quick portrait using these two different red tones. Okay, and here we are again with Drawing is Free. I'll go a bit faster through these since I don't have much more to say about them, and they were all made really quickly, as I explained. This time I used the brush. It's either this Pentel brush or one of those, which are also from Pentel, but I'm not sure what they're called. As you can see here, when it gets a bit empty, the brush tip frays, and then you can make these really beautiful dry brush effects. You can refill them with ink cartridges. And yeah, I really like those tools. So here I'm just going to go a bit faster, some more Drawing is Free portraits, and as you can see, they're really quick. A lot of times you cannot even finish them. You just gotta stop where you are and move on to the next one. Now this is actually a self-portrait I did with Nala, my dog. And so this was actually on Women's Day, the 8th of March. It's always International Women's Day. And it actually means a lot to me. On this last Women's Day, I was feeling particularly upset and defeated with misogyny on the rise in so many countries. So on this day, I sort of wanted to capture that spirit, my feelings. A mix of anger and sadness and outrage. And that's why I'm not smiling and I'm sort of looking down at the viewer. And even though technically it might not be my best, I like the self-portrait. I included Nala because she's also female and it gave me a little solace to think that it was us two girls fighting the patriarchy together. Later that day we all went to the Women's March and that's always a really beautiful and encouraging experience. Then this next abstract painting, I made it on the same morning and I called it What It Feels Like Being a Woman. I tried to channel this sensation that there is all this warmth and vulnerability and solidarity among the women in my life, which is symbolized by the warm, soft tones in the back. But then there's all this darkness and coldness that constantly tries to oppress women. So I was just trying to capture those feelings in an abstract way. Now these are swatches from a very specific little watercolor set. I'm just going to show it to you quickly. So this is from Choosing Keeping. I think they might also be Kuretake Gansai Tambi paints, but I'm not sure. There's not much information that I can read on it. This set is called Shadow Blacks, and it's just all blacks, or I should say different colors, but the more paint, the more pigment you activate, the closer to black they get. And so here I was just trying out how they work together and how they would flow into each other. And I actually think they're really, really beautiful. But to be honest, I still have to figure out how to actually use them. I was thinking this would be a good challenge for a future video. This is another Drawing is Free session, and we'll see again how it starts with Chloe, and I just did a couple of the others. Sometimes I don't have time or I don't want to stay the full hour and I'll just do a few. This one is done with Tombow. And then I tried to spritz some stuff on it. I don't know if you know this, but if you spritz the black Tombow with water, you get these really cool effects. But in this case I was also trying something else which I bought once, a long time ago, that I've almost never used. It's this Schminke Aqua Effect Spray for bizarre surface effects. I used this only here in this area on Chloe's portrait. I don't really think it did anything different than the water though. I mean, I know this is not watercolor, but this is exactly the same disappointing effect that I've gotten when I used it with watercolor. And we see that it goes through the page here. You can see it on the other side, which didn't happen where I just spritzed water. So this spray, it was not cheap, but to be honest, I think it's totally useless. I definitely do not recommend this product. I'm otherwise a big fan of Schminke art materials, but this one, it's not for me. Now this is a tree that I saw that morning. It had really nice light and shadows. And I actually just used some leftover paint that was still on my palette and a really long brush. Now this also has a whole story, but it's actually based on a photo I have, and it was when we had these strange lights coming in through the living room window one night that made really cool effects on the wall. So here you can actually see the silhouette of a lamp. And here I was just having some fun. I saw this grumpy animal online. I don't even know how to pronounce this. I just saw some cute picture on Instagram and just had to draw it. I love grumpy looking animals. They're just so cute. Alright, here we just have some random doodle. Sometimes when I absolutely don't know what to draw, I just start doodling. And somehow I just always end up making these kind of curly spirals. And so that's what I ended up with. Here I glued in some pages from this little workshop I took here in Brussels. We did a few exercises, but the whole point of the workshop was to be really loose and to embrace drawing badly and making mistakes. And in the end, I just wanted to keep some of these memories. Now, I don't like any of these sketches or paintings, but it was about remembering this day, and so I just added some short keywords so that I can also remember what the exercises were about. So there's a few pages here. First, we have some blind drawing here in this portrait. The page in the background was about feeling and flowing and just letting things come out of you, just making marks on the page. And then here it was about sketching something from different perspectives at the same time. So you will see this bottle here. I first drew it sitting down, and then I got up and I drew it again standing, so from a slightly different angle. And then I came home after this workshop feeling all inspired, and I remembered that I actually have a few alcohol markers at home too, and I wanted to give them another chance. I tried them once and I really didn't like them, but as it turns out, it's still not my thing. I just don't like alcohol markers. Now here on the right, this is obviously the girl with the pearl earring, a famous painting. And I did this during a stream of Monkey Mintaka, an artist I follow who does lots of great videos and lives here on YouTube. And down here I just have some random colors that I swatched, so these colors are not in the painting, it's unrelated. This sketch is also from the Monkey Mintaka stream. This is based on a drawing by Egon Schiele. And this page in the background that you see glued in is from a previous project. That is rice paper. And I tried to do some abstract stuff with watercolor on it, but then in the end I never did anything with those pages. And so finally I decided to just glue them in here as a way to still remember them and also honor them. And some of them I used as backgrounds and some I just kept as they were. Here I just have a bit of Neocolor 2 in the background, and I drew a very quick portrait over it with very strong shadows and a big black marker. This is another one of those pages from the rice paper experiment, but then I used sketching ink to do another drawing as free session. You can see this is from June 2025, so this is quite recent. I always have some that don't turn out well, but I do like how Mandy and Bruno turned out. And this one, well, it's another one of those pages here, and I just went with some white medium over it. I just wanted to see what the effect would be, and initially my plan was to sketch something on top of it, but I just never did. And then here we have two more, and I wanted to leave these how they were. Especially this one on the right. It almost reminds me of a landscape. You know, there's a little town or maybe a factory down there. And then over here, this is the smoke that rises up into the night sky. This is another quick sketch I did based on a photo reference I saw online. I was just interested in those shadows and how they defined the shapes of the body and the face. And then this you might recognize. This is from the last video I posted. So these are studies of dog paintings by artists I really like. The first one was from Made by Harriet, and I wrote down here what I learned from doing those studies. Then next I did Sally Muir. Again, same thing, I did some studies of her paintings and I wrote down what I learned. Then I did a lot of very quick dog sketches. If you want to see this and a lot more dog sketches and paintings in detail, then please go check out my previous video. Here I just have a color combination that I really wanted to do something with. It's 3 of my favorite Caran luminance pencils, and I love how they mix. They make this really interesting combination, and they even kind of blend together, especially the anthraquinone pink and the Indian throne blue. And so that's it for this sketchbook. Making this video, I realized that it contains a lot of portraits and very few landscapes or urban scenes. I suppose I was just in the mood for portraits lately. What's your favorite drawing in this sketchbook? I'm very curious. I hope I could inspire you to open your sketchbook and draw or paint or just experiment. In my view, that's what sketchbooks are for. And that's why I love using them so much. Thanks so much for watching. This is a new channel and every like and comment really motivates me and helps me to grow this channel. I'll post a new video every Wednesday, so subscribe and hit the bell to make sure you never miss any of them. So long and take care.